I'm going to run you through some quick steps for using the X-Rite Color Checker, both the full-size color checker, this is the video version, and I'm also going to have a quick look at the Passport version, which gives you basically the same information with an additional focus checker in a nice handy hard shell for carrying around with you, slipping in a pocket. No excuse not to have it with you when you've got one that size as well. What we're going to talk about first of all is white balancing with these charts. This is a spectrally flat grey. Now what that means is as the light hits it, all frequencies are reflected from it. So in other words, it doesn't absorb any frequencies of light as it gets hit. So you get an accurate interpretation of the colour that's hitting your subject. And in fact, that's the second point. It should be where your subject is. I'm the subject for this, so it's where I am. It can be very tempting to move these right over to where the camera is, but the light over there is completely different from the light here. There's a couple of different tricks that you can use to balance this, both in camera and once you get back home and in your edit suite. So we're going to look at how we can do that in post in a later part of this video. But right now, a quick tip for in camera. You can manually adjust your white balance in pretty much any camera. You can set the Kelvin to pretty much where you want it to be. But I prefer to take samples and do a manual balance. You point it at a grey target and you tell it to sample from that. The focus side of this, by the way, is pretty straightforward. Stick it where your subject is. If it's a person, I'd always recommend focusing on their eyes, so it's a good idea to have this right next to their face so that you can check that the focus is accurate where their eyes are. And because of the converging lines here, it's actually incredibly easy to tell when it's in or out of focus. Another really nice feature of this chart is the 90 IRE white, 40 IRE grey and 20 IRE dark grey chips on the front that allow you, in conjunction with zebras being set to 90% in camera, to quickly judge when your image is perfectly exposed. So those are some tips for using these charts within the production process. So actually they're on set or wherever you may be. But now what we're going to do is we're going to go across into our editing suite. We're going to take our footage. We're going to look at how these charts are useful once we get inside the computer, how we can push and pull our colours around and our contrast around to get the most balanced and accurate image that we can. Okay, so I'm going to launch Adobe Premiere Pro, and the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to check that white balance. In this project I have two very short clips. So using the window workspace layout menu, I'm going to change to the color layout, which will bring up everything I need to do this. And I'm going to apply in the effects tab the Lumetri color effect. I'm going to drop that onto both clips. I'm now going to go to the video scopes tab, and I've got my parade up here at the moment. Now there's a temperature slider in the Lumetri color controls, which I can adjust along with the magenta green tint to make sure that I have my balanced image. So remember, if the red, green and blue channels are equal, the part of these scopes that relate to the white balance chart will be equal. They will line up because it is spectrally flat. They should be each level with each other. The other thing I can do then is I can flick over to my Luma waveform monitor, and I can adjust the contrast of my image to make sure that the chips are falling where they should do. I have on the front side of the chart my 90% reflectance, 18% reflectance, dark grey and glossy black chips. So what I'm looking to achieve is that the black is right down at 0. So I'm using the colour wheels and I'm pulling down the shadow brightness so that the black is at 0 IRE. Because my in-camera exposure was pretty spot on, actually the gamma part of the image is pretty much spot on. The 18% reflectance is appearing at the correct 32-35% IRE part of the scope. I can push that up a little if I want, but I'm also going to make sure that my highlight detail in the window behind me is not clipped. It's within the 100 IRE part of the scopes at the top. So I've got all my highlight and shadow detail. Contrast is looking good. Next thing is to then push some saturation into the image, again using the adjustments part of the Lumetri color controls. And the saturation should be falling roughly around 50% on the vector scope. So 0% in the middle, 100% at the outer edge. So about halfway out from the middle in the scope. And there is in fact an overlay here to show you roughly where they should be falling. So I'm looking to find the most saturated parts of the chart, which will appear as little spikes out towards reds, yellow, magenta, cyan, green and blue. And I'm just going to add in saturation until those saturated colours are hitting around the 50% saturation mark. And that should then give me the perfect balanced image.